In this complete tutorial you will have a look how we can use methods. Okay, we will have a look on methods, for loops, then classes, variables. Okay, and and I also have a beautiful course on Udemy. You can go ahead and check that out. I have a link in the description. Okay, and by this tutorial you can assume you will learn C sharp coding. Okay, how you can use functions, methods, basically function and methods basically both are same. Okay, for loops and classes you will have a look on. Okay, and this tutorial will teach you all of the basics that you need to start making your game. Okay, in this tutorial we will only gonna cover up how we can code in C sharp coding. Okay, so let's, without furthering delay, let's get into this topic. Okay, today's topic, how we can use or how we can start coding. Okay, in C sharp in general. To create a script, what you can do, you can go to assets, right click, then create C sharp script. Okay, or what else you can do, you can select the game object from in your hierarchy. Okay, right over here, and then go to top right inspector and click on this add component, then name new script, and then name the script what you want. Okay, so make sure you attach that. I'm gonna go to assets in project tab, assets, right click. Okay, create and C sharp script, name the script what you want. So I'm gonna name it something like player. Okay, and let's hit this enter and double click that to open in Visual Studio. Sorry for the background noises, it's coming out. Okay, I'm really sorry for that. So double click that to open up in Visual Studio, and make sure you attach this script to any game object of your hierarchy, or else the script will not work. I'm gonna explain it why. Okay, a little later on, later on. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and when it's done, go back to Unity once more to compile that perfectly. Okay, so just wait. Just wait. When it's done, just go to Unity one more time, and it will compile the script for our Unity. Okay, and when it's done, okay, it's just taking a little longer time in my PC or system. So in your case it's gonna take a less time if you do have a fast system built. Okay, it's depend upon a system, your code, how much fast it runs. So let's go to Unity one more time. Okay, and now it's gonna reload or compiling, gonna compile the script for a bit of moment, and once it's done, go back to script. Okay, and let's explain that. So just wait for to compile, and I hope I'm just explaining with 2D game. It's also good with 3D game. So you just have to add one more axis to 3D game, which is the Z axis, we know. Okay, so let's open that up script by over here. So as you can see, we have our player class. Okay, we have start function and update function. Let's talk about this class later. Okay, later let's go to this start function and update function. This start function get call, basically what is a function, let me talk about it. Function basically a set of line of code you can write once, but and you can call as many times as you want. Okay, just like this void start, this function get automatically called by Unity, and this update over here in the bottom get called over again and again and again. To make a custom function, what do you need? Let's go to down. Okay, let's go to down. For function we have to type void. Okay, and you have to name the function. So what do you want? Let's call this test. Okay, and you have to make this first bracket and some curly brackets. Now it's created our function. Okay, this is our custom function, which is the test one, and you can write over here whatever you want to do. Okay, so if we move to Unity now, let's suppose we want to see a message in the console. Okay, console in the right over here. If you can able to find console, what you have to do, you need to go to window in the top. Okay, then general, then in the right over here you can find any tab you lost, or something like this console. Let me close that up. If I right click on it and then and just click on this close tab, as you can see the tab has been gone now. Okay, to restore that or to get back, okay, what we need to go to window in the top, then scroll to the bottom, says general, and over here we can find all of the tab. Okay, so I recently lost this console, so I'm gonna click on that. As you can see, it's bring me up the console tab right away. So I'm gonna drag this. You can drag this tab anywhere you want, like this in the scene or hierarchy. So I'm gonna drag it to over here. It was before, it was here, so I'm gonna drag it over there. So as you can see, now we have our console. Let's suppose we want to see a message. Okay, to see a message or to print out a message, what you need, you have to type this debug. Okay, debug 10 dot log. Okay, and you have to make this first bracket and this quotation. Okay, and in quotation you can type whatever you want to say, something like I'm gonna call something like test. Let's call print out a message says test. And to end this line of code, what you need, you need to add a semicolon to the end of your line, or to end your code. Okay, just you have to type a semicolon. We made the function right over here, is a custom function we made. For function we have to type void, okay, and name the function whatever you want. And we also need to call this function. If we don't call it, this right over here, this message will not print out right over here. Let me show that you. So control S, to save your code you need to control S, or what else you can do, you can go to top left, says file. Okay, at top left file, and file, and you can see I guess, as you can see, save assets, basically player dot script or cs script. So control S, so you can click right over here, or the shortcut key for it, control S. Now let's move to Unity. Now it will take a few moments for compiling our script, so let's control S and let's go to Unity now. Okay, and what we need to attach this script to any game object of hierarchy. Okay, so as you can see, this right over here, this script we haven't attached to any game object of hierarchy. So let's select this script and drag it to add component section. Basically we need to attach that, or what else you can do, click on add component, find the script by typing the name of the script, you name it. Okay, so which is in my case player, so click on that and attach. Or what else you can do, you can create another game object for that script. To do so, what we need to go over to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon, create empty game object, name the game object what you want. Let's call it player as the name of the script. Let's go to transform, basically means position, rotation and scale. Let's reset it, so right click on it and reset. Okay, and we need to drag the script right over here. Okay, or what else you can do, if I right click on that and remove component and then add component, and find the script by typing the name of the script, which is player. Let's attach that. So I'm gonna remove it from this main camera, that script. So right click on it and remove component. And now if I select the console right over here and hit this play button, we should able to see that message test. Okay, in quotation we type, but the problem is that we never call that function. We also need to call that function. Okay, so as you can see, we are not able to see the message right over here because we have to call the function. So basically let's call this function. To call function, what you have to do, basically you have to type the name of the function, which in my case test. Okay, so let's go over to this update start function. This function right over here, start, get called when the game start. Okay, so if I just hit this play button and the game plays, that function will call out right away. and this function right over here called just one time. Okay, just one time. So what we want to do inside this function, we want to call this function which is test. Okay, to call that function you have to type the name of the function which is test, and make this first bracket you need to make, and to end this line of code you have to add semicolon. Okay, semicolon, control S to save your code now, and let's move to Unity. Move to Unity, and we should able to see that message now will popped out in the console says test right away when the game start, and it just called one time, and the update function calls over again and again and again. Okay, let me hit this play button, and you're gonna able to see that message. Okay, see that message, and we can call this function anywhere we want. We can call multiple times, we can call one time. So if we go to, as you can see, test message gets pop up in the console says test. Okay, so in quotation you can type whatever you want to say, it will be print out in the console right away, and it just called one time as you can see, which is says test. Okay, and you can type whatever, and basically we know this start function get called when the game start. So what we want to do now, let's take the update function. Okay, so let's go to skip one more time, and let's use this update function. And in update function we also want to call this function. So basically function is a set line of a specific line of code which we can make one, but we can call multiple times whenever we need. Okay, we can call it start function, we can call it update function, and this update function it's called get called automatically by Unity. Okay, and it just call over again and again and again, something like around in 1 second 60 times. Okay, but it's basically depends upon on your system. It can call a higher number of frame rates, or the function calling it can rise if you do have a fast system, but if you do have a lower system, then this function update function is gonna depend on your system. Okay, so it will call less. So that is the catch basically. So let's call this function in the update as well. To call this function we have to type the name of the function which is test, and end up with semicolon to end your line of code, and control S to save your code. And now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that the test message will be popped up in the console over again and again and again and again, because we calling it update function. Firstly it will call in the start of the game. So if I pause this button, you can see in the three buttons in the top, so you can pause it, and if you hit this play button, the message will be popped up. Basically one frame will be run now because we pause the game. Okay, so one frame will be passed. In one frame the start function will call, as you can see, and what we done in start function, we call this function test function. Okay, and test function right over here just printing out the message, and then after it, it's the update function get called. And what we doing inside update function, we calling, we also calling this test function one more time. So that's why this message get print out twice. Okay, as you can see. So and now if I unpause the game, as you can see the test message getting popped up again and again and again, and it just going on, as you can see right over here, because update function calls every single frame. Okay, in 1 second around 60, but it's totally depend upon on your system. Okay, so as you can see the message getting popped up again and again, and it just going on. So that is the case. Basically some function basically is set line of a specific line of code. You can just make one, but you can call multiple times whenever you need. You can call in the start function, and we also have a awake function. Okay, awake, so you have to type this void awake. Okay, this awake, and this awake function get called one time, but it calls before start time. Okay, so let me remove this update function for now. So I'm gonna remove, and this update function, okay, this awake function get called one time right before our start function. Okay, start function also called one time, but this awake function get called before our start function. Okay, so what we want to do, and this is inbuilt function of Unity. Basically, you don't need to call this function anywhere to print out or to do something. It just get called automatically by Unity. Okay, so what we want to do inside this awake function, we want to call this test function one more time. Okay, test, and make first bracket, sorry, test. Okay, test, and make first bracket and close that up with semicolon. Okay, and over here you can see private, and over here not. So I'm gonna explain why. So Control S for now, and let's move to Unity one more time. We should able to see that that test message will be popped up two times right now, because awake function also called when the game start, and start function also get called when the game start, but a start function just called right after our awake function. Okay, let me show that up. Hit this play button in the top, and we should able to see that message gonna print out in the console right away, just right after our awake function. In awake function, as you can see, we the test message get popped up two times, because for awake function one time and for start function one time. Okay, and awake function get called when the game start, and a start function get called when the game start, just right after the awake function. Okay, start function get called. So that is the catch. We print out basically we create function, and we can call this function anywhere we want, and we can call it multiple times. Okay, and what we want to do, let's remove this private. So I'm gonna remove this awake function for now, and let's talk about private and public. Okay, so if you mark this as a private, something like private void start, basically this is a private function. Basically, you can call this function from another class or another script. You won't able to call this function from another class or another script. To call this function, what you need to mark as public. Okay, something like this. I'm gonna explain later as well this one. Okay, so you have to mark as public, so you can call from another class, or else you won't able. Let's go to script. Okay, so what is a variable? Okay, variable are just like container. You can put variables. There are many type of variables, I guess four. So let's explain one by one. So first thing, first variable you can say is string, then floats, then doubles, then ints, and bool parameters. So there are many type of variables or containers, you can say. We can put values and we can use it later. Okay, to do so, what we need, if we go to this player script, to make a variable. Okay, we have to type the variable type. Okay, or data type, you can say, I guess. Okay, so float, float basically which those comes with decimal places like 1.5, 0.5, 1. Also integer value is also, and float numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 also a float numbers, and if those comes with decimal places also it's a float number, something like 1.5, 1.2. I am really sorry for the background noises. Okay, so 1.5, 1.3, 1.2, anything like that comes with decimal places, that is an float, and we have to name the variable. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. Let's call variable. Okay, I'm gonna call float variable. Float variable. Okay, float variable. And make sure you just make the one, make the second statement or the second sentence or the second word, this capitalized, this v capitalized. Okay, to make it more noticeable. And we have to set the value. You can set it to 0, you can set it to 1, you can set it to 1.1, you can set it to 1.2, and make sure you have to put f in the end. F basically means float. Okay, and you have to use this close semicolon to end your variable. Okay, as you can see, we created a float variable. It says 1.2. Okay, so Control S on your keyboard to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Okay, let's move to Unity. and we should able to see that float variable underneath our player script in the inspector top right. Okay, in the right section in underneath our player script. Just wait and see the result what's really happening. Okay, so just wait. Once it's done, make see that the result. Okay, so wait, but the problem is we are not able to see. Okay, not able to see, but why? Because this is an private field. Okay, if you don't mark as some, sorry, private or something like this, public. Okay, public, it's automatically get marked as private. Okay, but if you wanna still wanna see this variable underneath our this player script, what you need to go to inspector top right, to click on these three dots and go and click on this debug mode. Now we are able to see, as you can see, float variable, and by default we set it to 1.2. okay, as you can see. So I'm gonna go to normal mode one more time, and if you go to script and make this one public. Okay, you just add, sorry, you just hold down alt and use up arrow key, so it will take wherever you need. So I'm gonna cut this, so I'm gonna select and control X for cut, and I'm gonna paste this, control V for paste. And if we make this one make public, just write public before this variable. Okay, and control S, we would expect that a field will appear and gonna pop up underneath our player script sets, says variable. Okay, float variable, we should able to see, as you can see, float variable, and by default we have set 1.2, but later on we can change the value as well. So let's go to script one more time, and I want to change the value. Okay, we made the container and we put the value which is 1.2, but I want to change this 1.2 with something else. To do so, I'm gonna use this start function. Okay, and we know start function get called when the game start. When you hit this play button in the top and the game starts, this function gets trigger or get called. So in this function, what I want to change this variable. To change this variable, we have to name the variable, which we have to type the name of the variable, which is float variable, and I'm gonna set it to so by default we set 1.2, so I'm gonna set it to something else, something like 1 point something like 2. Okay, to f. Make sure you put f at the end of your variable, basically means float, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We would expect to see now this float variable will change right after the game starts. Okay, when the game start function gonna trigger this, start function gonna trigger, and what we doing inside in start function, we just changing the variable to a bigger number. As you can see, float variable equal to 2f, so this one should be 2f when the game start. Let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button, and this float variable will change right after the game starts. Okay, we should able to see this one will be 2. As you can see, float variable is 2. Okay, 2. And what we can do now, we can apply the is multiplication. Okay, multiplication. So I'm gonna go to down of this start function. Let's suppose we want to I want to multiply this float variable with something else. Okay, and I want to see in the console. Okay, to see in the console, we know we have to type debug.log function. Okay, debug.log function, and in brackets we have to pass the string or the value, you can say. So what I want to do, I want to multiply this float variable. So you have to star key or asterisk key, I guess, hold down shift and press on your 8 key 8 number, I guess, star key. Basically this work as a multiplication. Okay, and I want to multiply this float variable something like 10. Okay, 10 and 10f. So make sure you put f in the end and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity one more time. So firstly what we doing, we changing the variable float variable to 2. So this one out here becomes 2. So 2 into this 10s, what it should be, 2 into 10 will be 20. Okay, 2 multiply 10 will be 20. So we would expect to see in the console 20 will just gonna pop up right after the game start, because we doing inside the start function. Firstly we changing the value this float variable to 2. So and we printing out, so debug.log, and float variable right over here is 2. So 2 into 10, so this should pop this should just give us 20 units. Okay, so control is to save your code. Now hit this play button in the top. In the console we should able to see 20 gonna pop up right away. Okay, so just wait. So as you can see 20, okay, 20 just pops up in the console. So I hope you get the idea how you can use variables, okay, and you can do multiplication, and we also can multiply, also can divide. So divide we have to use this, it's basically we have to use this one, okay, to divide, and I'm gonna just remove this, and I will divide with 2 unit. Okay, so the float variable right over here is 2. So 2 divided by 2, so 2 divided by 2 should be 1, and so this will print out in the console something like 1. Okay, so control S on your keyboard to save this, and let's move to Unity. I'm gonna test with every operation we can do. So okay, to make it more clear what variable is. Okay, so 2 divided by 2, this float variable is 2. Firstly we setting it as you can see, and then we dividing it by 2. So let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that I guess percentage or another symbol we have to use. So let's see, as you can see one just gets pops up. Okay, one get pop up because this float variable is 2. Okay, so 2 divided by 2 over here becomes 2 divided by 2 is 1. So but I want to add something like 100. Okay, to add we have to use this plus icon. Okay, let's replace this 2f with 100f now. So the float variable right over here is 2. So 2 plus this 100. Okay, 100 will be 102. Okay, let me show that you. So control S to save your code one more time, and let's move to Unity. So 102, basically 102 should be pop up in the console. Float variable, firstly we set 2 unit, and then we adding up to that float variable 100 unit. Okay, so 100 plus 2 will be 102. Okay, let me show that you. So let's hit this play button in the top. So top, and we should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console. So as you can see 102, okay, just gets pop up because this float variable is 2 and then is 100. So 2 plus 100 is 102. So I hope you get the idea. Float variable. Let's talk about now integer variable. So I'm gonna remove this line of code from this start function, as well as I'm gonna remove this float variable. Let's talk about now string variable. Let's talk int variable. Okay, so let's make it public so we can see underneath this over here. And if you don't make it public, something like if you make it private instead, you're not gonna able to see over here. As well as if you just remove this and type right over here, and it also marked as private, basically we're not gonna able to see the field underneath our that player script. Okay, so that's the catch. So I'm gonna make it public so I can see over there. So public int, and you have to make the int. It's basically those number which these whole numbers like 0 1 2 3 4, and the list just goes on. It's not something like 1.2 0.5. It's not like that. Whole numbers, only whole numbers, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 0. Okay, those are integer numbers which don't comes with decimal places. Okay, so we also have to name the variable or the container. Let's call it int variable. I'm gonna call it int variable, and by default you can set it to something like 2f. Okay, so not don't put f in the end of this end variable, because this is an integer value. Okay, make sure that. So I'm gonna, by default, I'm gonna give it 10 unit and close that off with semicolon to end line of your code, and control s to save your code. And let's move to Unity. So we would expect to see an empty field will appear just underneath our this player script, and by default we have given 10 units of value. Okay, so just wait. So as you can see, if I select this player game object int variable, and by default we have given 10. Let's suppose I want to change this 10 to with something. Okay, to change, let's use this start function one more time, and over here I will set in variable. Okay, in variable to something like I will set 100 or let's set 50. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. Control is to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see when the game start, because this start function get called when the game start, not it just get called automatically by default. So in the start of the game we changing the value of this int variable to 50. Okay, so let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button. So when the game start, this int variable will replace from 10 to 50 right away. Okay, so as you can see, int variable just change it to 50. Okay, and we can do the operation. So let's go to over here. So let's go to bottom. So for printing out we have to type debug.log. Let's do a operation. So I want to subtract from this 50. Okay, from this int variable, so we have to use int variable, or basically the variable name. Okay, and I want to subtract from this int variable something like 10 unit. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. And so in variable we know which is 50 in the start of the game. So 50 minus 10 over here will be 50. So in the console we should able to see that 40 will appear. Firstly we just setting the value, and after that we subtracting from this int variable by 10. So int variable is 50 as you can see. So 50 minus 10 will be 40 now. Okay, so let's control s to save your code, and now let's move to Unity. Okay, move to Unity, and let's see, we should able to see that 40 gonna pop up in the console because we subtracting. Okay, so let's hit this play button, and we should able to see that's gonna pop up. Okay, so just wait. So as you can see, 40 gets pop up in the console. Okay, because this int variable is 50, so 50 minus 10 will be 50. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. So I'm gonna I stop the game, and the next thing we have to cover up the string variable. So I'm gonna remove this these values, okay, from the start function and from this variable, okay, from top of my class. Now let's talk about string variable. Let's make it public so we can see. So the type of the variable is string. So this string variable or the container can save or store name, something like Batman, something like Bat Code, my channel YouTube name, it's a YouTube channel name. Okay, something like my name is Vairab Roy, so I can store my name. So okay, and we have to name the variable or the string value. So let's call it name. Okay, and by default, as you can see, and over here a green line I guess becomes, because we already used this name somewhere I guess. So to get rid of this, you just have to add new in front of this whole line of code. Okay, just add up new if it comes. Okay, and you can set a by default name. So in quotation you have to pass, okay, whatever you want to say, you in quotation you can set. So in quotation, let's suppose I'm gonna set Vairab Roy, it's my name. Okay, Vairab Roy, and I'm gonna close that off with semicolon, and control is to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. So under player script we should able to see Vairab Roy gonna pop up in this right over here, says name and then Vairab Roy. Okay, so just wait. As you can see, name Vairab Roy. Okay, and we can change it, we can add up, we can change to anything. Okay, To change what we need, we know we will set this name to another way, something like in quotation we have to type make quotation, make sure it. Okay, so I'm gonna set bat code and close that up with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. So in the start of the game, okay, when we hit this play button, so in the start of the game this name will be changed to Viraproid to bat code. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button in the top to play our game. So in the start of the game we changing Viraproid to bat code. We should be able to see that. Okay, as you can see the name change it to bad code. Okay, and what we can do, so if I unplay this and let's move to script one more time, and we can add, okay, we can add to anything to this. So to add you have to use this, sorry, you have to use this plus icon. Okay, plus icon, and in quotation you have to type whatever you want to add up. Oh, okay, so something like I want to add up something like 10. Okay, something like 10. So bad code 10 will be pop up in the pop up right after the game start. Okay, let me show that you. So control S to save your code. Now let's go to Unity. So we just leaving the name which is bad code in the start of the game, and adding to that bad code plus we use, so adding 10. So bad code 10 should gonna pop up right after the game start. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button, and this will change it to bad code, and then we adding 10. So bad code 10 will pop up right over here. As you can see bad code 10 just gets pop up. Okay, and we can change it, we can subtract anything, we can do this string value. Basically we can use this string value or this container to change value. We can store names, we can store anything we like. Okay, so what I want to do, so in the console I want to see a message. So debug.log we have to type, let's say name. Okay, name plus so I'm gonna remove this plus and this 10. I'm gonna leave with this bad code. So name plus, and in quotation we have to type what we want to say. It has something like has a YouTube channel. Okay, channel to and close that off with semicolon. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake right over here. So name, we know name we replace it with bad code. So bad code has a YouTube channel gonna pop up in the console. As you can see debug.log when the game start. Okay, so control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that bad code has a channel gonna pop up. Firstly the name is bad code, then we adding to that sentence has a channel. So bad code has a channel gonna pop up in the console when the game start. Okay, let me show that. So let's hit this play button in the top. So we should able to see, so name which is bad code, as you can see bad code has a YouTube channel. As you can see bad code has a YouTube channel just gets pop up in the console when the game start. Okay, because we added up to this name, and name we know this is bad code, so the name is bad code plus has a YouTube channel. So that's why this sentence just added up to our name. Okay, so that's the thing. You can change the variable name to anything. You can add up, you can multiplication, you can do whatever you can do. Okay, so I hope you get the idea. So the next variable we have to cover up the bool. Okay, bool, it can store two values. It can be true, it can be false. Okay, it can just hold up two values. So let's go to script one more time. So I'm gonna replace this now. Okay, replace this now, this is string. So so what I want to do, so let's make it public, and we have to type the variable type which is bool, and it can be true or false. Let's call bool variable. Okay, let's call bool variable, sorry, variable. And you can set it by default to true, you can set it true by default to false. It's totally up to you. If I don't set anything like that and close that off with semicolon, So by default this one will be false. Okay, let me show that to you. So control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see underneath our player script Bool, which we name it something like we name it Bool variable. As you can see a box appear, so this box is unchecked. Basically unchecked means false. Okay, unchecked means false. So if I want to set this one to true when the game start, what we need, so let's go to start function, and we know start function get called when the game start, and it just called one time. Okay, so what we want to do in the start of the game, we want to change this variable. We just want to set this variable to a true parameter. Okay, so we will set variable bool variable equal to true. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. And now let's move to Unity. We should be able to see this bool variable right under over here underneath our player script, this bool variable. And if we hit this play button, this will be checked, basically means true. Okay, when the game start, we changing or we setting this bool variable to a true value. Okay, basically we checking that. As you can see, it's gets checked, basically means true, and you can set it right over here during live or during in play mode. You can change the value as well. You can tweak it, you can change to anything you can. So I hope you get the idea. Some basic data types or some basics variable, bool, string, integers, and bool string. I guess we covered it 4. Okay, there also another variable type, it's called double. Okay, we're not gonna use it for now. We will take a look later, okay, on that as well. Mostly we will use this 4 type of variable: string, bool, integer, and float. Okay, we're gonna use this to do multiplication. We can do whatever we just want to do. Okay, so that's the catch. So I hope you get the idea. And the next thing, we will take a look a quick example for that. Okay, take a look how we can use variables to do something. Okay, so I'm gonna go to hierarchy. So go to hierarchy, firstly right click, then go to 2D object, then sprites, then select circle or square. I'm gonna select the circle. Okay, circle, and go over to inspector in the top right. Go to transform, right click and reset the transform. So it will set the position in the x, y, z in the 0 0 0. As you can see, all of the position goes reset. Okay, so I want to move this game object. Okay, I want to move this game object. So I'm gonna attach the player script right over here. So click on add component. So if you haven't created the script yet, what you need to do, go over to project tab, then assets, right click on assets, create C script, name it whatever you want, and then select this game object and add component, and find the script by typing the name of the script you recently created and just attach that. So I'm gonna attach the player script. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the player script from this game object. To remove that, select that game object and go over to inspector, then right click on that script and remove component. And now I'm gonna select this circle, add component, and I'm gonna find the script by typing name of the script, so which is the player. Let's attach that and double click that to open up in Visual Studio quickly. Okay, let's suppose I want to move this game object to the right side. Okay, to move this game object to the right side, left side, or down, up, we need to use a function. So let's use this update function, because we know update function runs every single frame, so that's why. So let's use this update function. And what we want to do in update function, we want to move this game object to the right side. Okay, right or left. To move this, we have to use a transform. Okay, transform dot translate function. Okay, and translate and make first bracket. Basically transform right over here referencing this transform. Okay, this transform, and we know transform is responsible for position, rotation and scale. So that's why, so we using this translate function, and translate function right over here, it's gonna take the direction we want to go. Let's suppose we want to go in the right side. Okay, so so we have to pass 1 in the right, and means in the x we will pass 1, in the 0 we will sorry, in the y we will pass 0, because we don't want to move this game object in the y axis. We only want to move this game object to the right side. Okay, so what we will do, we will type right in between these brackets new vector 2. Okay, and vector 2 we know has two coordinates. Okay, two axes. It has x axis and y axis. So x axis and y axis. So in the y axis we don't want to move, so we're gonna put 0f in the y axis. Okay, basically if we move to unity and select this move tool, we don't want to move in the y axis, we only want to move in the x axis. Okay, so that's why, so I will go to script once more time. Okay, and in the x we will put 1f. Okay, and then what you have to do, make first bracket and close that off with semicolon. Oh, okay, now it's fine. So we moving every single frame, as you can see, with one frame. So control S on your keyboard to save your code, and now let's move to unity. We have done inside update function, and we know update function runs every single frame. So every single frame in the x axis we will move one, so we will go to the right direction. Okay, so that's the catch. So control S to save your code, and the problem is that you're gonna able to see now. So let's hit this play button in the top and see the result, what's really happening. It's just gonna go quickly in the right side. Okay, so let's see. So as you've seen, it's going so much quickly. To make it a little bit less, or over time, to make the speed constant, we want to make the speed constant, not gradually, we want to increase it. Okay, we need to multiply this with time dot delta time. Okay, with time dot delta time, time dot delta time, time dot delta time, and also with a variable, or with a speed. Okay, I'm gonna explain why. Okay, why we need to use variables to move our game object. Okay, so that's the catch. uh, so what we want, so what is time dot delta time? Let me explain. Let's suppose I do actually I do have a system that is a little bit slow. You might have a pretty fast system. Okay, so in your laptop or PC, this update function is gonna run, and once again something like 120 frames, and in my case it will run in once again 60 frames. So you can see there is a huge difference between frame rates. To make this frame rate constant, we need to multiply this time dot delta time. Means whatever computer you using now, this update function will run same amount of frame will pass every single time. Okay, something like in my system, something like suppose in 1 second runs 60 frames. So even you are using a fast system, in 1 second it will run 60 frames in your system as well, even using the fast system. So that's why we need to multiply with time dot delta time, and we also need to multiply with some unit, so we can go so a little bit faster. Okay, so let's multiply this with something like 10f. So we hard coded it, hard code it. Okay, we hard code this one. But so we basically, what we need to come to the script, and we need to change this value to 5, then 4, then the list just goes on. So instead of doing that, that's why we need to use variable. So we go to top of our class, and we will make it public. Okay, because why we making public? Because that field will be right over here, gonna pop up. Okay, and we can adjust it over here, so we don't need to come to the script and change this value value with whatever. Okay, so that's the case. So I will use public, that will be a float, a variable. We have to name the variable. Let's call it speed. Okay, move speed or speed, and by default you can give any value or you can leave it like this, end up with semicolon. Okay, so I'm gonna give something like for amount of speed for f. Make sure you put f at the end for float variables. Okay, and close that off with semicolon, and let's replace this 4f with this speed, and speed is 4f. So every single frame we will go to the right side with 4 amount of speed. Okay, and the speed will be constant because we multiplied with time dot delta time. Okay, so let's multiply that speed and control s2. If you don't multiply this speed, so in by 1 unit it will go to the right side, that square, that circle, but the speed will be pretty slow. So that's why we multiplying with variable to adjust the speed we want. Okay, so that's the catch. So control s on your keyboard to save your code, and let's move to unity now. Okay, so control s, and let's go to unity. As you can see in player script, we can see the speed right over here, and by default we set it 8 to 4, and we can adjust it over here. We can bump up, we can shrink down, we can type negative, so it will go to negative side. So I'm gonna leave with 4 now. Let's hit this play button, and you will able to see that this circle will go to the right side for amount of speed every single frame, and the speed will be constant. As you can see, it's going to the right side and the speed is constant, and I can adjust in play mode this speed. If I put a negative, as you can see -3, it's going to the left side. If I put a 5, then you can see it's going to the right side. So that's why we need to make variable, so we can adjust it over here. We don't need to go to the script and change the value with whatever we want. Okay, so that's why we need to use variables to make the game development a little more easier and fun and speedy. Okay, you can say something like that. Okay, let's take a look on if statement. Okay, so let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio our script. So let's move over to this update function. Okay, over there we will use this if. So you have to type this if. Okay, and for you have to make this first bracket and some curly brackets. Okay, so basically what you want to you have to do in between these brackets. Okay, in if statement, in right between these brackets you have to pass a condition which should be true, else what and if it's true, whatever you write in between these curly brackets will run or execute. Okay, something like we definitely know that 10 is greater than 1. It is true. Yes, it is definitely true, 10 is greater than 1. But if you say something like 10 is lesser than 1, this condition is not true. So whatever you write in between these curly brackets will not be executed. Okay, so you have to pass in between these brackets in if statement which should be true, else whatever you write in between these curly brackets will not be executed. Okay, so let's suppose we say something like 10 is greater than 0, and we know 10 is definitely greater than 0. So the condition over here in between these curly brackets, it's true. So whatever we write in between these curly brackets will now will be executed. Okay, so let's print out. So for print out we have to use this debug.log function, and in brackets in quotation you have to say something like I will say yes, something like yes, 10 is greater than 0. Okay, and close that off with semicolon to end up your statement. Okay, control s to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Select the console in the bottom and hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console, says 10 is yes, 10 is greater than 0. the condition we pass in right between those brackets, it's totally true. Okay, so that's why. So let me show that. Let's clear the console and let's hit this play button. So the message will gonna pop up one by one, every single frame, because we have done inside update function. Okay, so as you can see, the message just getting pop up in the console again and again, and you can see it over here, 400, then 500. It's just going on because we have done inside update function, and we know update function runs every single frame. So what we want, uh, so so what we want right over here, basically, uh, so let's pass a condition over here, something like 10 is lesser than 0. So as you can see, 10 is lesser than 0. So I guess, okay, so 10 is lesser than 0. As you can see, the condition over here, it's not true. Okay, it's not true. 10 is not lesser than 0, 10 is greater than 0. So the condition over here is false. So whatever you write in between these curly brackets now will not be executed anymore. So Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should not able to see that message gonna pop up in the console says yes, 10 is greater than 0, because we pass a false condition. Okay, so the condition over there should be true. Let me show that. So let's hit this play button in the top. Okay, let's hit this play button in the top. So you're gonna able to see, as you can see, the message is not getting pop up in the console because we pass in between, right between those brackets, a condition which is totally false. The condition should be right over there true, else it will not be executed. So that's the thing of using if statement to check some certain condition, and we, okay, some certain condition. So what you can do, you can use a else condition as well. So what we will do, we will type else and make some curly brackets. So so else, so if this condition is not true, so we use this else condition. Okay, and in else condition, whatever you gonna write, it will be executed. Okay, if you pass a condition in if statement and it's totally false. Okay, if it's totally false, then you can use it this else statement. You don't have to make it this brackets. Okay, this first bracket, you can use this else condition. Okay, else condition, so you can write a statement that will be executed, because this one is not true. So that's why we're using else. What we will do, that condition. So let's print out a message. So debug.log. Okay, and let's make first bracket in quotation. Let's say yes 10, yes 10 is not greater than 0. Okay, close that up with semicolon. So now this condition will be run. If this is false, as you can see, we made a else condition. So if this is not true, then else condition will run now. Okay, so Control S to save your code. So let's move to Unity now. We should able to see yes 10 is not less greater than, I guess what we type, greater than 0. Actually 10, sorry, we type wrong message over here. 10 is, we say 10 is not lesser than 0. Okay, sorry for, I really apologize for that. Okay, so let's move to Unity. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. The else condition will run because if condition is totally false, so that's why else condition we use to execute anything. Okay, so let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that 10 is not lesser than 0. That message gonna pop up our console. As you can see, 10 is not lesser than 0. Why? Because this if condition is false. As you can see, that's why this else condition is running. So in case if condition is false, we can use else statement to use run another line of code or to execute anything we want. Okay, So I hope you get the idea. So let's use instead of else condition. Okay, so let's use a else if condition. I'm gonna remove this else if. So if this condition is not true inside of our if statement in those brackets, if it's not true, we will check for another, and we will check for right over here 5 is greater than 1. Okay, 5 is greater than 1, so make some curly brackets. So we definitely know this else if condition will be run, because as you can see, if condition is false, as you can see, if condition is totally false, 10 is not lesser than 0, so that's why this else if condition will be run now. Now it will check, it will move over to else if condition, and it will check the condition in between these brackets. If it's true, then it will run. Let's suppose you pass a condition over here in the else if as well. Whatever you write in between these curly brackets inside of else if statement, it will not be executed. Okay, so we pass a condition right over here. As you can see, 5 is greater than 1, and we definitely know that 5 is really greater than 1. So the else if condition will be run now. Okay, so one by one the code will check. Okay, firstly it will move over to this if condition, it will check the condition. So if it's finds false, then it will move over to next condition, which is else if. It will move and it will check the condition over there, and if it's true, then it will run, and then if it's false, we can make this else condition. Okay, so make some curly brackets. You don't need to pass. So the else condition will be run if both of this condition is false. Firstly it will move to this if, then if it's false, so in between these brackets whatever you write, it will not be execute. Then it will move over to else if, and it will check the condition you pass in between these brackets. It will check if it's true or false. Okay, if it's true, then whatever you write in between this curly bracket will be execute, so this else condition will not be run. Okay, so the condition over here will be run. Suppose the condition over here you pass is a false, something like you pass 5, 5 is lesser than 1. So we know 5 is not lesser than 1, so the condition over here getting false, so that's why it will move to else condition, and whatever you write inside else condition, it will be execute. So it will check one by one. Okay, so let's in print out, for printing out, let's say debug dot log, and make first bracket in quotation, I'm gonna say 5 is I will say true. Okay, I will say else if is true condition, true condition. Okay, condition else, and close that off with semicolon, and into else statement what I want to type, something I want to type something like, say, debug.log. Okay, both statement, both up statement or top statements is false. Basically we gonna refer this else if and else if. Okay, we will say top conditions, conditions is totally false. Okay, false, and close that up with semicolon. Control S to save your code. So which one over here gonna run? Let you definitely know. So firstly it will move over to if condition. If condition, as you can see, this condition over here is not true. Okay, 10 is not lesser than 0, so that's why in between this curly brackets whatever you write, it will not be executed, so this just gone. And now it will move over to this else if condition, and in between these brackets it will check. As you can see, we pass a true condition right over here. 5 is greater than 1, as you can see, and we know 5 is really greater than 1, so the condition over here is true. So whatever we write in between, written in between these curly brackets, else if condition is true, as you can see. So this message gonna pop up in the console, says else if condition, else if else if is true condition. So this one right underneath else condition will not be run. So any of them should be true. Okay, any both of them, if any one of them is true, then it will run. And let's suppose both of this if and else if condition is false, then this else statement will run. It's not gonna check for any condition to be true or false. It will automatically run if both of those condition, if and else if condition is false. Okay, so we definitely know this else if condition will run because the condition over here we pass in between brackets is totally true. Okay, so control S on your keyboard to save your code. Now let's move to Unity and let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that else if condition is true, else if is true condition message gonna pop up in the condition console. As you can see, the message getting pop up so many times because we know the condition we pass in else if in between brackets it's totally true. So that's why. Okay, and let's suppose I'm gonna unplay this. Let's go to script. Okay, and over here let's suppose I pass something like 5, 5 is lesser than 1, and we do know that 5 is not lesser than 1. 5 is greater than 1. 5 is not lesser than 1. So the condition we pass else if is totally false now. So we should not able to see this message gonna pop up. Also this message because this 10 is not lesser than 0, and also this 5 is not lesser than 1. So what condition will run in this case? In this case this else condition will run, and it's not gonna check for any condition to be true or false. It will automatically gonna run if both of those condition, if and else if condition is totally false. Okay, so that's why this condition is will run. And it says top condition is totally false. Top condition it's totally false. You can write any message you want to see. It's totally up to you. So let's control S to see control S to save. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console, which is the else condition. Okay, else what we doing? We just printing out the message says top condition is totally false. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button. Okay, in between brackets you need to pass a condition which should be true. Okay, and we will check for so as you can see, top condition is totally false. This else condition is running because this else if condition is also false. This if condition is also false. So that's why this else condition is running. So we use this condition if and else if to do something or else. Okay, so that's the catch. So I'm gonna unplay this. So I will use this else if condition to do. So I'm gonna remove this line of code now, and we will check over here if. So if, and in brackets we need to pass a condition which should be true. So we will check for if input. Okay, we will get its inputs from user. Get mouse button down. Okay, you need to make first bracket. Okay, so if input dot get mouse button down, if you pass in brackets this 0 basically means the left mouse button. Okay, and if you pass right over here 1 basically means the right mouse button. So I'm gonna check for left mouse button. So I'm gonna pass this 0 and make some curly brackets. So what we doing basically right over here, we passing a condition if input dot get mouse button down 0. Basically if we clicking the left mouse button, okay, if we don't click, so this condition over here will be false. Okay, so whatever we write in between these curly brackets will not be executed. But if this condition is true, so basically if input dot get mouse button down basically means we clicking the left mouse button. So if we clicking the left mouse button, so what we want, well, let's suppose for now we want to print out a message. Okay, for printing out we have to use this debug dot log, and in quotation we have to type whatever we want to say, something like we left mouse button gets click. Left mouse button got click. Okay, got click, something like that, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code, and now let's move to Unity. Okay, Unity we should able to see now. If we click left mouse button, the condition over there in if statement will be true, and if it's true, we know in between whatever we write, those message gonna pop up in the console right away. Let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button, and if we don't click left mouse button, okay, so and not any message not gonna pop up in the console. Okay, as you can see, and not and anything like that not getting pop up. But if I click left mouse button, as you can see, left mouse button got click message gets printed out. If I click multiple times, as you can see, the message getting pop up in the console. Okay, so you can use this to do something. Okay, something like if you press down, so this circle can jump. So let me show that to you. Okay, I'll show that to you by an example. So I'm gonna select this circle. Okay, select this circle and go over to inspector, and over there you can see add components. So I'm going to click on that and find over there rigid body 2D. So rigid body 2D basically adds up add up gravity to this game object. Okay, let me show that to you. So if I hit this play button, you will able to see this ball or this circle will fall down due to our gravity, because we added up rigid body, and rigid body is responsible for gravity. As you can see, it's falling down. So I'm gonna unplay this. So what I basically want to do, so if I click the left mouse button, I want this ball to jump in the up direction. Okay, up direction. So that's the thing. So what we need a reference of this rigid body. Okay, rigid body, and then we can add a velocity or a force to the y direction, some unit. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. Firstly, we need a reference of this rigid body. So let's go to top of our class. Okay, top of our class, let's make it public so we can see the field right underneath our this player script. Okay, and the type of the variable is rigid body. Okay, and the rigid body we have to type, and you have to name it. Let's call it RB. Okay, RB, and control S to save your code. Let's move to Unity. We should able to see an empty field, rigid body 2D underneath our player script gonna pop up right away. Okay, so what we need to select this rigid body. As you can see, non-rigid body 2D, and we name it RB. So what we need to select this rigid body and drag it to that. Now we have a reference of this rigid body. Now we can add up a force to our this you can say this ball. Okay, so let's go to script one more time, and what we will do, instead of printing out message, if we click the left mouse button, what we want, we will go over to this rigid body. We know we have the reference now, rigid body, and we will use this add force. And what we want to add a force. If I select this circle and F2 focus on it and select this move tool, we want to add a force or a velocity in the y axis, not in the x. So what I will do, let's pass over here new vector 2. Okay, so in the x axis I don't want, vector 2 has two axis, it has x axis and y axis. So in the y axis something like, let's say 10 unit 10f. Okay, and in the x axis I don't want anything like that, so I'm gonna put 0f. So so we need to come to the script over again and again and change this value 10f. So what we need, we will use variables. So that's why variables is too much useful when it comes to a real life application, when it comes to making our game. Okay, so what we need to go on top of our class and make it public so we can adjust through inspector, and the type of the variable is float. Okay, and you have to name the variable. Let's call it y velocity or y force or y velocity, something like that. And by default you can give it any value you like it. Okay, so I'm gonna give 10f. Okay, and I will replace this 10f this y velocity. Okay, y velocity, and this is a force. Okay, so that's why we, as a second argument, we need to pass force mode 2d dot impulse. Okay, So comma, we have to type force mode, okay, force mode 2D dot impulse, okay, and close that off with semicolon. So if input dot gets mouse button down, so as you can see in between a brackets, in between this brackets we pass a condition which should be true. If we click the left mouse button, so the condition over here in if statements getting true, and if it's true, whatever you write in between these curly brackets will now be executed. And what we doing inside this brackets, we just going over to this ball, okay, with this ball, and we adding up a force to the y-axis with this amount which is 10, as you can see in the x-axis 0. So basically when we click the left mouse button, that rigid body, or sorry, that ball will move in the y-axis 10 unit, and it will fall down 1 second due to gravity. And if we click second time the mouse button one more time, so it will go in the y-axis 10 unit, but we can specify the variable in the inspector, okay. So control S on your keyboard to save your code, and now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that message gonna when we try to click left mouse button, so that in the if condition it's getting true, and we know if it's true, then we just adding up to this ball a velocity to the y-axis, this 10 unit, but we can adjust it over here. We can set it to 20, we can set it to 15, it's totally up to you. Sorry, 16, 15, so I'm gonna leave with 10, okay. Let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button in the top, and now when we try to click left mouse button, we should able to see that this ball will go up, okay, with 10 amount of unit, as you can see, and it's falling down due to our gravity. But when we click left mouse button, it's falling down, it's falling up, okay. So I hope you get the idea how you can use if condition to do some certain things, okay. Okay, so I hope you really get the idea of if condition. You need to pass a condition in between those brackets which should be totally true, okay. And over here we checking if input dot get mouse button down, if we clicking the left mouse button down, so the condition in between this if brackets getting true. So that's why with the velocity in the y-axis we added adding in 10 unit, okay. But when we don't click left mouse button, so the condition over here getting false, so that's why it's falling down, okay, falling down because this line of code not getting execute or not getting call, okay. But when we click, then getting call, and what we do know what we're doing inside this curly brackets, okay. So I hope you get the idea of if condition, okay. Let's talk about loops, okay. Loops, basically we loop some certain line of code. We can loop something like we can loop the name, we can take it twice, something like you can say John Coffee, John Coffee. As you seen, as you heard, I tell two times that John Coffee. Okay, so basically we can loop. Okay, we can loop names, anything like that. Some certain. Okay, there is a two type of loops we can use: for loops and while loops. Okay, let's talk about for loops. So let's get into our script. Okay, and let's go to our start function, and we know start function get called when the game start. Okay, so in this start of the game, what we want to use a for loop. To get the for loop, you have to type this for, okay, and if you tap twice on your keyboard, okay, it will fill out the whole structure of the code, okay. And over here, as you can see, I over here start from 0, and I this condition over here, I if it's lesser than length, basically as a length you can pass any value you want, and the second time and third parameter, as you can see, it will increase by 1. I plus plus, basically we adding 0 plus 1, which will be 1, okay. So let's pass as a length right over here, pass 3. If we pass 3, so these for loops, and these for loops will run, okay. So it will start from the 0, as you can see, start from the 0, and we know I over here is 0 now, and 0 is lesser than 3, so the condition over here is totally true. So whatever you write in between this curly bracket will be execute now. Okay, and then I plus plus, so I is 0, so 0 plus 1, basically I plus 1, basically 0 plus 1. Okay, so 0 plus 1 we know 1, so next time it will be I over here becomes 1. Okay, as you can see 1 is 1 will be still lesser than 3. Okay, so the over here whatever you write now still gonna be execute. Okay, so now 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so 1 this I is 1, so 1 plus 1 is 2, and the third time, so I is over here is 2. Okay, and we know 2 is still lesser than 3, so whatever you write in between these curly brackets now still will be executed. Okay, and so this I over here is now 2, so 2 plus 1 becomes 3. Okay, 3, so the fourth time, I guess fourth time, so this I over here is 3. Okay, and we know I is not 3 is not lesser than 3, so the condition over here in parentheses, okay, basically in brackets you can see the condition over here it's not true. 3 is not lesser than 3, so the condition ever over here is totally false. Okay, so this for loop will break, so the condition it will loop until the condition over here getting false. Okay, you have to pass a condition which should be true, and it will loop until the condition getting false. Something like if I write over here tens, so 10 times this for loops will call. Okay, and when this I over here becomes 10, something like let's suppose I is 9. Okay, this I is 9, and over here we know 9 is lesser than 10, so in between these curly brackets whatever you write it will be executed. So now 9 plus 1, as you can see I plus plus, basically 9 plus 1 becomes 10. Okay, 10, so I over here is 10 now, 10 now, and we do know that 10 is not lesser than 10. 10 is equals to 10, so the condition over in between these statements getting false, so the condition over here false, so that's why this for loop will breaks. So for loops runs until the condition over here getting false. Okay, let me show that. So if I pass over here, sorry, I'm gonna pass I over here 0, and let me pass over here 2. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to print out a message. Okay, for printing out message we do know we have to type debug.log. Okay, and in brackets we can say whatever, let's say this for loop will run. Okay, will run, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code and move to Unity. Okay, and we're doing inside a start function. Okay, and we do know that start function get called when the game start. Okay, when the game start, this function get called. Okay, so Control S to save your code, and let's move to Unity now. So in the start of the game we gonna able to see this statement or this message will be popped up 2 times, because as you can see we pass 2. Okay, so just wait for to compile. Let me show. Select the console in the bottom and hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that message. This is for loop will print out 2 times, because as a length we pass 2. Okay, let me show that to you. As you can see it's run it's get pop up twice. Okay, because we pass 2. Why it's doesn't get doesn't get a call a third time. Let me show that to you. Basically it doesn't get called third time because I start from 0. Okay, and we do know that 0 is lesser than 2. Okay, and it's definitely true, so that's why this this message getting popped up for the first time. Okay, so I is over here 0, so 0 plus 1 right over here becomes 2, becomes 1. Okay, so the I over here is now 1. Okay, and we do know that 1 is lesser than 2, so that's why the condition over here is now true. Okay, so that's why this message getting popped up for the second time. Okay, second time. So I is over here is 1 and I over here is 1. Okay, so I plus plus, so 1 plus 1 becomes 2. Okay, for the third time, this I is 3 and we do know, sorry, this I is 2. Okay, and we do know that 2 is not lesser than 2. So that's why this for loop breaks. So that's why this line of code doesn't get executed. Okay, this doesn't get called because the 2 is not lesser than 2. So the condition over here, okay, over here get false. So that's why this message not get print out for the third time. Okay, so you have to pass and you can print out as many times you want. Okay, so if you pass something like 100, okay, so 100, so 100 times this for loop will this message gonna pop up right away at once. So that's the catchy thing to use for loops, so we can spawn at one time multiple enemies at one time. How many enemies we want to spawn at one time we can do. For if statement, it for to use another thing, it will more will be hard coding. So we instead we use for loops to spawn or to do anything at once multiple times. Okay, at once we want to spawn something like thousands of enemies, thousands of game object, anything we can at one time we can do that. Okay, so that's the use of for loops to make or spawn any game object at one time multiple game objects. Okay, so let's suppose I will pass right over here 5. So if I pass 5, so 5 times we're gonna able to see this message. This is for loop will gonna pop up in the console. Let me show that to you. Okay, control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that this message, this will right over here, this for loop uh, will run 5 times. Okay, so let me show that to you. Let's hit this play button in the top and we should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console 5 times because as a condition we pass 5. Okay, as you can see 5 times get pop up 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so as you can see, so let's take an example what we can do with our for loops. Okay, something like I want to spawn a enemy game object or something, some scholar for now. Okay, so let's go to hierarchy, right click, then go to 2D object sprite and I'm gonna select this square one. Okay, so I'm gonna drag this square right over here. Let's turn this into a prefab. To turn this into a prefab basically means copy of that game object. So if you select that and drag it to assets in project tab. Okay, and if you delete, it's turned blue. Now if I delete from the scene or hierarchy, it's gone. But what we can do, we can select that prefab and we can drag it over here. So we have a copy of that game object. So that's the use of using prefab. Okay, basically means copy of that game object. So I want to get rid of now. So what I want to spawn this square. Okay, multiple times, multiple times. Okay, so just wait, multiple times. So how I can do that? So let's go to script. So instead of printing out message, I want to spawn this square 5 times. Okay, to spawn we have to use another function. It's called instantiate. Okay, instantiate, and this as a first argument it will take the game object you want to spawn. So we want to spawn this square game object. So let's go to top of our class and let's make it public. Okay, yeah, that will be game object because that square is also an game object. Let's call it square. Okay, square, square, and let's go to, sorry, not r, square, and let's go to over here. As a first argument we will pass square and make sure you just drag the reference. Okay, square, square, and the second thing, it will take the position. Okay, let's suppose we want to spawn something like over here. Okay, So note the position. So go over to inspector, then transform. You can note the position, which is 5 we can pass, and then 2. Okay, so I'm gonna drag. So let's go to script. So new vector 2 I will use. Okay, and we know vector 2 has x axis, y axis. So in the x we will pass 5. Okay, 5, and in the y I will pass 2. So the position is right over here, something like that. Okay, and the second and the third argument, it will take the rotation. Okay, for we don't want to rotate something like that, so we have to use quaternion dot identity. Okay, quaternion dot identity, it's basically means no rotation. Okay, and close that off with semicolon, control s to save your code. So this instantiate function spawn our game object. Okay, we are spawning this square. Okay, I really apologize if I am spelling wrong. Okay, really sorry for that. At this point with no rotation, how much time? 5 times. Still this I becomes 5. Okay, so control s to save your code, and let's now move to unity, and let's hit this play button. Oh, sorry, we need to drag the reference out here square. As you can see, it says non game object. Okay, so what we need, we will get some error. So basically we need to drag this, select that square. Okay, firstly select this circle or the script, and select that square and drag it to square fill. Now we have this square game object. Now we can spawn it. Okay, so let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that square game object will be spawned 5 times. Okay, and at once, directly in the start of the game. Okay, so as you can see, 5 times we can see 1 2 in hierarchy, 1 2 3 4 5. So I'm gonna select one of them, I'm gonna drag it down, and then so you can just do this. Sorry, so we have 5 square. As you can see, 1 2 3 4 5. So why 5, why not 6? Basically when this one becomes 5, so let's suppose I is 4, so 4 plus 1 becomes 1. Okay, sorry, 4 plus 1 becomes 5. So and we do know, so for the sixth time I guess, so 5 is not lesser than 5. Okay, 5 is not lesser than 5. So that's why this whatever you line in between this curly bracket will not be execute. So we it will stop spawning. Okay, for spawning we use this instantiate function, and it's take the game object, which game object you want to spawn as a first argument. Second thing, it will take the position, and third thing, it will take the rotation. Okay, so it's get stop when this ones became I5. Okay, this I5. So at once we can spawn multiple game objects at multiple points. We can gonna talk about it later. Okay, something like that. Okay, so that's the catch. We can spawn any game objects at one time, multiple at one multiple times. Okay, by using that for loops. I hope you get the idea how you can use for loops to spawn multiple game objects at one time, at anywhere, at any point you want. You can specify some point, you can do so. Okay, so I hope you get the idea of for using for loops. Okay, this is an quick example of using for loop. Okay, so that's the catch. Take a look arrays. Okay, arrays basically, in a single variable we can store single piece of data. Okay, something like in string value we can store one single value or one single piece of data, something like name. Okay, so into arrays what we can do, we can hold up multiple data. It can be names, position, float values, integer values, whole numbers, anything like that. We can hold up multiple piece of data in an array. But for variable is that it just restricted by one single piece of data. So that's why we use arrays to hold up multiple data we can store, and we can also extract from them into that array if we are looking for or a specific one, some with just a one specific one. Okay, we can extract info that. Okay, so let's take a look how we can create an array. So let's go to script, and to make the array what we need, so make sure you making it public. Okay, make it public. That will be string. Okay, a string basically names. Okay, names. And to make an array you just have to use this square brackets, and you have to name the array or the array variable. We can store multiple data. Okay, something like we can store names, so let's call it names and close that off with semicolon. Okay, and now let's move to a start function, and we know start function get called when the game start, and it just get called in the start of the game. So let's assign this array over how many data we want to store. Okay, so we want to store 3 pieces of data, so we have to set names. Okay, names equal to name of the array, and we will set equal to new string. Okay, a new string, and you have to make this square brackets, sorry, square brackets, and you can pass 2. If you, sorry, if you pass 2 right over here, it will hold up 2 values. Oh, this string can hold up 2 values, but if you pass right over here 3, so it will hold up 3 piece of data, you can say. And if you just pass 5, then 5 pieces of data it can store, and we can assign those data what name or those each one of them should be. So okay, so I'm gonna do 3. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. And names, we have to type the name of array name. So we have to make also the square bracket. 0 basically means the first. Okay, first container in the array, you can say. It's now blank container. Okay, so what we can do, we just go into that container and we can store the first name of that variable. Okay, or into that array we can assign. So we have, you can say, in that array we have 3 containers. Okay, or 3 variables, we can say, and we exactly we can store each of them what we want to exactly we want to store. Okay, so the first we going first container in that array. So 0 basically means the first container, and we will set equal to, in quotation we have to type is string value. Okay, so in quotation we have to type. So let's call this Spider-Man. Okay, Spider-Man, and close that up with semicolon. Now it's end up. So in the firstly we going over to that array, then looking over to first container, or first, you can say, first piece of data. We store Spider-Man into the first container into that array. That array have 3 containers, you can say. So in the first container we store the name, which is the Spider-Man. Okay, so we will go over to next container of that array, or you can say in that array, you can say. So we have to type the name of the array. So the one is the second one. Okay, so in the second one we store the name, something like let's call it Venom. Okay, Venom, and close that off with semicolon. Now we basically we going over to the second. Okay, second container of that array. Oh, okay, and we storing the Venom name into that second container. Okay, and now let's go to third container of that array. Okay, so basically array holds up multiple containers, or you can say multiple datas. Okay, and so we will go over to names of that array. So we have to pass to, basically means the third container or the third piece of data we can store. So into string we have to type the name. So let's call this anti-venom. Okay, anti-venom. Okay, anti-venom, and let's close that off with semicolon. Okay, control S to save your code. Now we store it. Firstly we created a name array, and into name array we assigned 3 containers, as you can, names equal to new string, which is 3. Okay, so that array will hold up 3 pieces of data, you can say. Okay, and we assign it each one. For the we going over to first one, and we assign it with Spider-Man. Then going over to second one, we assign it Venom, and we now going over to the third one, we assign it as a anti-venom. So let's suppose in that array we want to extract the second one, the name, what data we stored it, we want to extract that. Okay, so let's go to update function, and we know update function runs every single frame. So we will go over to that and we will use if condition, and let's get some input. So if input dot get mouse button down, sorry, get mouse button down. So let's pass 0 and make some curly brackets and close that, sorry, make some curly brackets. So what we doing right over here, basically if input dot get mouse button down, basically we clicking the left mouse button while the game is running. So what we want to do, we want to extract of that array, we want to extract the second container or the name, the second value you can say, or second piece of data we want to extract. Okay, we want to basically we want to see in this console. Okay, to see that, so we have to type debug.log. Okay, debug.log. Let's suppose we want to extract the second one, and we know second one, so we have to pass name of the array, which is names, and need to make this square brackets. If we just want to extract the second name, so we have to pass one, sorry, one right over here. So one, as we know, we assign it as a venom. So if you pass 0, 0 basically means first piece of data. So the first we going over to first container of that array. So we stored it in that first name, Spider-Man. So we don't want to do that. Okay, and if you pass 2, 2 is the last one, the third one, which is, as you can see, we assign it as a anti-venom. So I'm gonna extract the info, the second piece of data, okay, which is the venom. We should able to see the when we click the left mouse button, then we would expect to see that venom name should appear in the console, because we going over to second piece of data. Okay, so and close that off with semicolon, control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. We should able to see that when we click the left mouse button, we should able to see the venom name will gonna pop up in the console. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button, and we can assign it or as we want. Okay, you can create in that multiple containers or in that array. Okay, so let's click a left mouse button. As you can see, venom gets pop up. Okay, so venom gets pop up. So we just extracting the second information. Let's suppose we want to say extract the third one. Okay, so we have to pass right over here the two to index, basically you can call it index. Okay, so control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Now we should hope that anti-venom will get pop up in the console, because we are looking for the third container in that array. Okay, let me show that to you, and let's hit this play button, and you can increase, you can store as many piece of data you can. It can be float, name, string value, anything like that. So let's click left mouse button. As you can see, anti-venom just gets pop up in the console. Okay, so basically we use array to hold up multiple values, and we can also assign it each of them, okay, what we really exactly want to store. Okay, so in this case we store it the name, as you can see. Okay, so you can pass right over here 100, so you can hold up hundreds names. Okay, it's totally up to you how much data you want to store in that array. You can assign it. Okay, and you can exactly assign it what container should hold what type of data. Okay, so basically we use arrays to hold up multiple datas. Okay, so that's the thing. I hope you get the idea of using an array, how you can use array to hold up multiple or store multiple datas. Okay, so that is the great thing using of array instead of single variable if we want to store multiple datas. So that's the cool thing about making arrays. Okay, let's talk about methods, or you can say functions. Okay, so let's open up the script quickly. So I have player script right over here, and I also created another script by name of player 2, as you can see. Okay, so I have player script and player 2 script. So I will move to this player script, and over here I will make a function. For making a function or method, we need to type void. Okay, first it's basically defining a method or function, you can say, and you have to name the function what you want to name it. Let's call this one do. Okay, do or something like that, and make first bracket. Okay, sorry. So let's create a void for function and let's call do it. Okay, do it, and you have to make this first bracket and some curly brackets. Okay, so what we want to do inside this function, so basically let's print out. Okay, so for printing out we have to type debug dot log, and in quotation you have to type a message you want to say or you want to see. Okay, so I'm gonna do this is do it function, do it function, or let's call it method. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Okay, and when we hit this play button in the top and select the console, we should able to see that message says do it. Okay, this is do it method. The message we want, we just want to basically want to see. Okay, let's select this console in the bottom and let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console says this is do it method. Okay, uh, so as you can see we not able to see. The problem is that so I'm gonna unplay this. Let's move to script. So we made the function as you can see, but we never calling it anywhere. So that's why this line of code not getting execute or this message not showing in the console. So we also need to call this function or method. Okay, we have to call this method. We made the method but we never calling it. So we also need to call. Firstly we made the method but we need to call it. Okay, somewhere at least. So let's go to start function, and we do know start function or start function, start method or start function. This called by Unity itself. Okay, when the game start and it just call one time, it's automatically get called by Unity. So you don't need to call it. But if you made a custom function, then you have to call it. Okay. So let's go to start function and we will call this function. To call this function you have to type the name of the function, which is do it, and you have to make this first bracket and close that up with semicolon, and control S to save your code. Now let's move to Unity. Now we will able to see right after the game start that message, this is do it method message gonna pop up in the console. Okay, right away. So let's hit this play button in the top and say let's see what's really happening. Okay, we should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console says this is do it. As you can see, this is do it method gets pop up right after the game start, because this start function get called when the game start, and in there we calling this do it function, and we know what do it function is doing. It's just printing out the message this is do it method in the console right away. But we can call this, I'm gonna unplay this. Okay, we can call this do it function. We made one, but we can call multiple times. So that is the huge opportunity or huge pros for using this function. Okay, we just make one, but we can call it wherever we need. Okay, so I will use a awake function. This awake function also get called when the game start, and it called by automatically Unity, by Unity. You don't need to call it. Okay, but it get called right before this start method get called. Okay, so firstly the await method will call by Unity, and then start method will call by Unity one by one, and it just call one time this awake as well. Okay, and this start as well. So let's go over to this do it awake function. Okay, so let's also call this do it function one more time right over here. So let's call it do it and make first bracket and some close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. And now let's move to Unity. We should able to see when the game start, two message gonna pop up in the console, and those will be same message. Same message. Firstly, we calling awake function, and we do know that awake function get called when the game starts. So let's hit this play button in the top. We should able to see two message gonna pop up in the console right after the game start. Firstly, it as you can see, this is do it method first time, and start function also get called. This is do it method. Okay, so basically we can call as many time we want. Okay, we made one, but we can call as many time we want. So that is the cool thing of using function. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, so let's suppose you want to call this function from another class in this start function. Okay, so what you need, so I'm gonna remove all of this function over here. Instead I will make this do it, and control s to save your code. Let's go to another script. Okay, and make sure you script, you name it whatever you want to, you just what you have to do. So let's wait for compiling it, and I'm gonna explain. So you need to go to project tab, then assets, right click on asset, then create C# script, name the script what you want. This will be your second script. Okay, and I already have created, and attach that script to any game object of your hierarchy. So I attach this player too. So you have to select that script and drag it to add component section. Okay, and let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. So I want to call this do it function from that class. Okay, so let's go to that player script. To call that function, we have to use this find object of type. Okay, object of type, and into arrows we have to pass the script name, which we know the player script we made that function do it. Okay, so let's pass this player, and then make first bracket. You have to make this first bracket, and then dot. You can call. The problem is that we cannot able to see that do it function right over here, because when this function automatically get assigned private. Okay, if you don't make it something like private, a private, or you can leave it like this also mean private. But if you want to call this function from another class, then you have to mark this function as a public. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to just mark it as public. Okay, public, and you are good to go. Now we made this function public. Now we can call this function any from another class. Okay, another class or another script. Control s to save your code, and let's go to second script. Okay, and dot, let's access that do it function. As you can see, now we are able to get that function. Okay, and make first bracket to call the function and end up with semicolon. Okay, firstly we finding the script which is player, we going over to player script as you can see, and then we calling this do it function right there. Okay, firstly we moving over to this player script, and we basically we calling then this do it function as you can see right over here. Okay, make first bracket, and we doing inside of start function, and we know start function get called when the game start. So in the start of the game, we will able to see this is method message gonna pop up, because we calling do it function, and we know what do it function is doing. It just printing out the message says this is do it method. Okay, as you can see right over here. So in the start of the game, we should able to see that message gonna pop up. Okay, control s to save your code. Now let's move to Unity, and make sure you attach the second script to any game object of hierarchy, else it will not work. Okay, make sure that. So just wait for to compile, and it's done. Okay, now let's select this console, let's clear it, and let's hit this play button. We should able to see that message gonna pop up in the console. Okay, right away. The So as you can see, this is do it method just get call. Okay, so I hope you get the idea how you can call a function from another class as well. And the second thing we have to cover are that arguments. Okay, so let's go that. Okay, so let's explain me that. So let's go to player function. Over here you can, in brackets, you can pass arguments. Basically this function takes and do some certain things. Okay, something like I'm gonna pass a string, okay, string, and let's call it message, okay, message. And you can replace this whole, okay, debug.log and message, okay, debug.log message. So what we doing right over here, this function taking argument, okay, so this function will take argument and it will do operation with the argument or whatever we pass. As you can see, we pass a string which is the which will be a string value, okay. Later on we can replace this message with a string value in quotation we have to type, okay. So let's go to control s to save your code, and let's go to player script. As you can see, and red underline becomes our in our do it function. So basically do it function gonna take a argument, okay. So you have to pass in quotation whatever you want to say. So let's say this is do it function, this is do it method or function, you can say. Basically what we're doing, we're just replacing message, this is string value, okay. So firstly we printing out this message and we replacing this message, as you can see, with this string value, and this is says this is to it. Basically we can take arguments and later on we can replace this message with any string value we can. So we replace this message when we calling with this is to it. Or what else you can do, you can just instead of message you can pass right over here this is do it, but instead I'm gonna pass message, and we know as a message argument or parameter we pass this is to it. So this is to it message gonna pop up in the console right away, okay. So that's the catch. I hope you get the idea. It takes arguments and later on is it's easy to replace it, okay. So that is also a cool thing of using a function. We can take those function, we can pass arguments and later on we can change with anything we can, okay. So that is the thing. I hope you get the idea. And we replace this message, okay, message we printing out, and we replacing this message with this string value, and we saying that this is do it method, okay. So control s to save your code. Now let's move to Unity, and we should hope that message gonna pop up in the console says this is to it, okay, method message we will see. So we get an error, I guess not, okay. So let's hit this play button. Let's hit this play button. We should hope that gonna able to see that message gonna pop up in the console. As you can see, this is to it method, okay. So that's the cool thing of using a function, okay. We can take arguments, and okay, so as you can see we can pass arguments and then we can replace this argument with anything we can, as you can see, okay. You can write or whatever you want to write, and you can use that, and you will able to see in the console if you type debug.log, and that function gonna pop up whatever message you want to see in the console, okay. I hope you get the idea of it, how you can use functions, okay. Let's talk about classes, okay. To create a script or class, you can say, you need to go over to this project tab, then assets, right click, create C# script, name that to something like it's totally up to you what you want to name it. I name it player, so I'm gonna double click that to open up in Visual Studio. As you can see in this class, we have start and update function and also this namespaces, okay. So what does actually do these namespaces? Basically it's allow us to use some certain functions, variables, or anything like that. It help us to do that thing, okay. So that's the case of using a, okay. If you just remove this using Unity engine, you're gonna get some error, as you can see. So that's why we have to use using Unity engine, okay, and close that up with semicolon. let me talk about in this class mono behavior. Okay, it's mono behavior, a unity class. You can see if you just remove this mono behavior and this colon right over here, you're not gonna able to attach this script to any game object of hierarchy. Let me show that to you. So let's go to unity. Okay, let's go to unity and then hierarchy, right click, then create a empty game object. Let's call this game object to player, and let's go to transform of that game object, right click and reset the transform, and let's select this script and drag it to add component section. Okay, at comment, let's double click that to open up. So we need to save this. Control S for saving your script. And now let's move to unity. You will able to see this player script not gonna be attached with this player game object because we removed mono behavior. Okay, and mono behavior, as you can see, the associated script cannot be loaded. Please fix any compile errors and assign a valid script. So you need to include mono behavior. Mono behavior itself a total unity class, okay, which allow us to attach any script to any game object we want. Okay, so let's double click that and let's make this colon, I guess, dot, these dots, and mono behavior. Okay, now we are gonna able to see control S for saving our code. And now let's move to unity. We're gonna able to see that this player script will attach now with any without any errors. Okay, so that's the catch. So let me do that. Okay, so as you can see, now we not gets any error, something like that. Okay, so that's the cool thing. Let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio, and let me talk about what is a class. Basically in class we can assign attributes. Okay, and we can use those attributes to do something in player game object. Basically a class is a template. This player, as you can see, public class player, basically this is a template, and we can use this template to implement our game object. Okay, let me do that something. Okay, let me do that. So let's go to let's go to up of our class, and we can assign some variables right over here inside our class. Okay, something like let's make a public floor. Let's call this speed. Okay, a speed, and by default I'm gonna set it to 5 unit. Okay, 5 unit, and let's move over to update function. And we know update function or update method, it's get called every single frame, every time. Okay, in 1 second, something like 60 times. So what we want to do inside that, we want to do we just want to move this game object. Okay, let's add up another component. So let's select this player, click on this add component, add a sprite renderer. Why we adding a sprite renderer? And that component is responsible for showing up the sprite or the game object. As you can see, we not able to see any game object. We created an empty game object, but we not able to see. So that's why we need to add sprite renderer component, which is responsible for showing up the sprite or the game object we want to see. Okay, so let's go to sprite renderer, and in sprite, as you can see, it says none, empty. So what we can do, so click right over here, you can select any game object. As you can see, I'm gonna click on this icon, and I'm gonna select this one. Okay, so as you can see, now we are able to see this game object in our game view, as you can see. Okay, so so I want to move this game object in the right side. Okay, so basically what we need to go over to this transform, and we have to play around with this x-axis. So as you can see, it just moves left and right. So I'm gonna set back to 0, and let's go to script one more time, and we have to use this transform over here, basically referencing this transform of this player game object. Okay, and dot, we have to use this translate function. And this translate function or method will take the direction, which direction you want to go. So we want to go in the right direction. Okay, we don't want to move this game object in the y-axis, so we will put in the y-axis 0, in the x-axis I will put 1. Okay, something like that. So let's go to script. So we will use this new vector2 parameter, okay, or variable you can say, which has x-axis and y-axis. So for y-axis we will put 0f, we don't want to move in the y-axis, and in the x-axis let's put 2f, okay, 2 float or 2 unit. And to make it independent, let's also multiply time dot delta time to make frame rate independence, and let's close that up with semicolon, and let's control s to save your code. Now let's move to unity, and now we will able to see that we just done we have changes in player script some things, okay, and now we implementing in this game object, and we should see in this game object will gonna move in the right direction by 2 amount every single frame. Okay, let me show that to you. So let's hit this play button, and you will able to see this game object will move to the right side by 2 unit every single frame. Okay, let me show that up. As you can see, it's indeed going in the right side. Okay, every single something like every every single time 2 unit. Okay, so basically in script what we do, we just assign some variables, functions to do something. Okay, you can say this is this class this player class is a template, and we can use this player class or this template to implement into this game object, and this game object will do the same thing what we assign in this and in that class. Basically the class is a template, and we can attach that template to this game object to do something. So this is a game object, and that is a class. We use class to specify or basically to do something, and we can use that class or that template to implement to this game object, and this game object will do the same thing what we will assign in that class. I hope you get the idea of how class works. For beginners, I think it's enough to know about classes. Okay, uh, and we will in future tutorial we will have a look something like inheritance, something like that. Okay, also that is a advanced thing. For beginners, that is enough to know about classes, and we use this class to do something. Okay, so we use this class, and we can see in this class we have function. We can create multiple function. This called grouping. Okay, this called grouping method. You can create multiple functions to do something in this class. So class you can say is a template, and we can use that template to do something, and we can in that template we can use multiple multiple functions, variables, anything like that to implement in our game object. So I hope you get the idea of how you can use class to do something. Okay, and I hope you get the basics idea of this and in the whole series. And lastly, I want to thank you because you came to the end to watch all of these sessions. Okay, I'm really glad you came to the end. Okay, and lastly, thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.